In today's video, we're going to go over the 5 things you must master with your dog or puppy in order for the both of you to live your best life. Said another way, if you don't master these 5 things, then simply put, you have a completely untrained dog. And if your dog is untrained, it can be a complete nightmare.
Well, to start out with, I disagree. I do not think that these are the things that you must teach in order to have a dog who fits well in your life. And I don't think that they will be a nightmare if you don't teach these things. So what are these things? Let's go through it.
First thing you want to master with your dog is doorways and thresholds, whether that's your front door, side door, back door, your car door. And
I do agree that door control is very important, and it's really about safety, not so much about being obedient, but it's more about safety. I like to teach dogs that we do not go through doors or any type of barrier that you control without permission. I don't teach a stay, wait. I like to teach that we just don't go through the door without permission, regardless of where you are, what your body position is, any of those things. So I agree with this statement that this is a very important thing to teach. I don't like the way he teaches it, but we're not going to get into that one. But just know that door control is important.
all right, so the next thing you need to master is environmentals. That could be an escalator, could be an elevator.
It is important that you help your dog understand the environment. However, first let me say, never, ever put your dog on an escalator. I cannot tell you how dangerous that is for your dog. So put the ego aside. If you can't get them upstairs, then maybe you shouldn't go, or if you can't carry them. But escalators, absolutely not. Elevators, yes, but try to take the stairs. But environment does not mean force the dog into doing things that the dog is not comfortable with, as in this next little clip.
It could be the garbage truck that comes around only so often, strange, unusual sounds and noises, and we need to make sure that your dog is comfortable.
This clip is very disturbing for me. He's trying to say, let's get these dogs used to the environment regardless. If you watch the body language of that dog is absolutely terrified of the dump truck and is trying to get away, but it cannot get away because he is holding the dog with a prong collar, pulling the dog towards the scary thing, and holding a remote control for the shock because the dog doesn't want to approach. This is called flooding and hoping that the dog just stops trying to get away from it, and that creates learned helplessness. This is how he's getting compliance and obedience. So absolutely, we do not force dogs to deal with situations they're not comfortable with. We first have to make sure we give them the foundation, the ability to take in the information, and we also have to ensure that they're not in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. If they are, their brain is not in the right frame of mind in order to learn. So you want to make sure that anytime you get your dogs out for exposure, you're doing it in small little portions, not scary. Allow your dog to build its confidence in understanding this world. So be sure before you take your dog out to expose that you have good solid foundation, that you have an escape plan, and that you're not taking your dog out for exposure because it's convenient for you if the dog is not emotionally or physically capable. If they're having a bad day, don't take them. If they didn't get good sleep, don't take them. Make sure you set yourself up and your dog up for success.
You have to master the walk with your dog, whether that's the 1 or 2 walks a day that keeps the dog trainer away in your neighborhood, or you want to take your dog to the mall in the middle of a holiday shopping frenzy. It doesn't really matter. The number one priority is that your dog walks beautifully on a leash next to you.
All right, I disagree. I don't think that number one, that the walk is that crucial to having success with your dog. Why? Because, well, dogs come in many sizes, and not every dog really enjoys walking, especially the way this guy wants that dog to walk. He wants a perfect heel right next to you. Don't do anything but pay attention to me. In other videos, he talks about no words, no nothing, no guidance, just expecting the dog to read his mind and know exactly what he's supposed to be doing on the leash. So is walking important if your dog needs that? Yes, but we like walks to be more about enrichment and sniffaries, not this obedient military style exercise. So a loose leash walk is great, but it needs to be relaxed and it needs to be enjoyable for both you and your dog. Now, if you have a dog that pulls, obviously you need to work on some things, especially if you want to take your dog for a walk. But for us, we like to teach walking words and not being dependent on the leash or dependent on other tools as he is. And you'll see him talk about how important these tools are a little bit later.
To master that on-leash walk, and then if you want to step it up, you can go off-leash, and your dog can truly enjoy freedom. When you get to that park, you can release them to run around, and you have that recall mastered with the proper tool. So,
if you have to depend on a tool to get your dog to come when called, then your dog has not mastered recall. And here he's talking about the shock collar. He thinks that if your dog can walk off leash, it can come when called. And this is all because he is dependent on the shock collar and shocking the dog if the dog doesn't come. So teaching a dog to walk doesn't necessarily mean that the dog knows how to come when called. Can we get a perfect recall? Absolutely, we can. And when I say perfect for that dog in that moment, in that environment. And I say that because, guys, no one's perfect. None of us are going to do the right thing all the time. Our dogs are not robots. They have their own thought patterns. They have their own priorities. And sometimes coming to us is not the priority in the moment, such as when a dog is needing to control another dog to avoid conflict. If you call your dog from the dog park, and he's running to you, but another dog crosses his path, he has to stop and deal with that dog. That is his priority in the moment. It's survival. It's his instinct. It's what he was born and bred with. It is to avoid that conflict and that confrontation with that dog. That obedience of coming to the human, that is not priority to the dog, and it has nothing to do with disobedience. So we have to understand this. If we don't understand it, then we're just being abusers and saying, you come to me, and if you don't, I'm going to shock you.
let's get that walk figured out right now. And by the way, you can master the walk in 5 to 10 minutes, 100% guaranteed.
Do you know how he guarantees it? He uses a shock collar. So if the dog ventures away from his leg or his position that he wants him in, he just shocks him or yanks him back with a prong collar. You can see how much this dog is wearing. He's got like 3 collars on, a prong collar, a flat collar, and a shock collar. And the guy has a clicker on his finger, treat bag, and a remote control for his shock collar. Talking about tools, man. And something that requires 2 organisms with 2 different brains to work together, you can't master anything in just a few minutes. So we have to stop falling for these lies.
All right. All right, now we got to talk about socialization. People are going to want to pet your dog. If you want to take him places, they got to be well socialized. You're also going to have...
Socialization is important, and that goes along with exposure. However, not every dog wants to or needs to be petted by people. Not every dog needs to or wants to be approached by people. Not every dog wants to or needs to sit there to be petted by a stranger. If you watch this video very carefully, his dog is not comfortable at all with this lady petting. And the funny thing is the lady recognizes it, stops petting, and lets him sniff her hand. You can see that she's uncomfortable because she's reading his body language. And the trainer isn't. He's just forcing his dog to say, look how good my dog is in doing this. We need for dogs to understand that, yes, there are other people in the world, and there are different people of different heights, different colors, different looks, the different ways they walk, their sizes. They may have items like bags and backpacks and walkers or wheelchairs. There are a lot of differences, and yes, our dog needs to be exposed to those, but we don't need to go to the point to where so much socialization is overwhelming to the dog, and the dog cannot function, or it gets so overwhelmed in environments that it shuts down. And again, it looks like the dog is doing great, but in actuality, the dog can escape because it's on a leash, and therefore the dog just shuts down into learned helplessness, and you may not be seeing the negative feelings from the dog externally because the dog is in learned helplessness, but I can tell you that what's happening in the brain and the pathways that it's creating are very dangerous and something that will come out at a later time. So be careful when you're socializing. My pup is at this recording is at 10 and a half weeks old, and she's met maybe 15 people. And I've done that on purpose this go round because I want to make sure that I do not overwhelm her system before it's ready. I'm working on things that are really important for she and I and our bonding. And if she trusts me and we have our bond, then the socialization and exposure part will go much easier because she'll trust me and because I've set in some really good solid foundation. Here, I want you to notice how short he has the leash and how his hand is turned and almost touching his butt cheek. And he's doing this because he doesn't trust that the dog's not going to lunge. And you can see he's got the prong collar on. And he can't use the shock collar because in his other hand, he is carrying his food. But this just goes to show you that he's not as confident in his dog's behavior as he is exhibiting in his videos. And it's these little things that you'll start to notice. Also, those prong collars, being that it's a smaller prong, is actually one of the most painful ones that you can use. So don't be fooled.
How to master the downstay. Why? Practical application. I need to eat and I'm not trying to hold a leash while I'm eating.
Is a downstay important? Yeah, I think it is. Is your dog just a terrible dog if they can't do it? No, because there are ways that we can manage that. Now, if your dog can't go sit at a place to eat and do a downstay, then work on it. Again, I like the downstay. Don't like the way that he uses it, obviously with a flat collar, a prong collar, and a shock collar. Dog's not really trained. Dog's being forced to do these things. So you can definitely teach. We like to teach a place, and that place is anytime we have like a mat or a rug, and we teach the dog that place means that you're just going to chill for a little bit, and you can trust that no one's going to bother you. You're probably going to have a really good chew bone, and we're probably just going to hang out for a little bit. And the downstay is truly about saying, hey, just chill until I can give you more instruction. And most of your stays will be with you in the immediate area. Very few people are going to do a stay and then walk, at a site in public. That is unrealistic. Think about how you would use a downstay with your dog and start working on it in the home.
So we've covered a lot so far, but the final thing you need to think about that you and your dog need to master is the use of proper tools, or I should say the proper use of the proper tools.
When you hear trainers preach tools, that tells you that everything they're teaching is dependent upon the use of those tools instead of depending on bonding, clear communication, setting expectations, and being your dog's upper management and tour guide. That's what we should be focused on, not tools.
That's the leash, maybe a prong collar, a slip lead, an e-collar. It doesn't matter as long as your dog knows what that tool is, how to respond to that pressure, and how to turn it off. That's what's going to give you the reliable obedience that you need in order to have that sit and stay by the front door or the side door or at the mall.
Once again, he is dependent on the tools to do the job. He's not having to do anything. In other words, he's not having to understand dog behavior, dog language, dog communication. He doesn't really know how to teach anything. He's just using fear and force. Oh yeah, and pain.
For your dog to walk perfectly on a leash, they must understand the tool. You must understand how to use it. If you want to let that dog be off leash and enjoy that freedom, you've got to master the use of the e-collar. I'm not trying to sell you anything other than a well-trained, obedient dog, and the only way that's going to happen is through empowering your voice with the proper tools.
I hope this makes you cringe as much as it makes me cringe. He's basically saying that you have really no ability as a human being, as the smarter species, to help your dog learn how to be in this world with you, how to walk, how to stay, how to come. He's basically saying you have nothing. You're nothing without these tools. You have to use these tools. You have to do all of these things. The fear that he's putting into pet owners is the same amount of fear he's putting into the dogs. And you notice in this one where he's teaching the dog to lay down and he's using leash pressure, he's using a slip collar or a slip lead, and he's pulling the dog down. Is that dog learning to lay down? No, the dog is learning to in order to get that pressure to be released, follow the pressure until it releases. He's not learning to lay down. When there's no pressure, the dog's not going to understand the down. This is when they start to use the shock collar from a distance without their hand on a leash. Again, this is absolutely some of the most disturbing and disgusting things I've ever seen. It's bad. You don't need this. This is something that is being preached across the board of these trainers who's saying, here, pay me $3,000 and in 2 weeks I'll have your dog mastering all of this. This is how they're doing it, guys. They're putting fear and pain and punishment on your dog, and they're forcing this dog to do something that it's not prepared to do. They don't even have the development to do it. That puppy is not even mature. The brain has not completely developed as he's pulling this dog down with a choke collar or leash, choking this dog to lay down. This is ridiculous. So no, you don't need these things.
Another way, your voice can't make your dog do anything by itself. That's why many people are out there trying to bribe their dogs with treats. And yes, that's a fantastic way to teach your dog something. But when you run out of treats, or you don't have a treat on you that's valuable enough to overcome the distraction that's present, then your dog will not listen to you.
So he admits that using treats is a great way to teach, but he refuses to do it. Yes, if we are dependent on food to get the dog to respond, that is no different than being dependent on the tools that he is using to get the dog to respond. The difference is when you develop a relationship and you truly teach the dog what it is that you want, not just how to avoid a correction, then you don't have to be dependent upon anything. You can use your words. I have taught thousands of dogs using words. That's how we teach. We have this communication. We discuss things. We talk to dogs. And our dogs respond just fine. And he's saying, well, if you don't have food, they're not going to respond. Guess what? If you don't have your shock collar, your dog is not going to respond. And so he's kind of using this whole fear tactic for people to stay away from using positive reinforcement. Why? I don't know. I mean, if you really love dogs, why would you want to cause pain, fear, and harm? For me, this looks egotistical, and it's all about him, and it's about him making money, and about him showing people how good he is. Not in it to, actually teach the dogs how to live in this world and be responsive to commands when we need to have that extra added safety and extra added control.
And therefore, you need to have a dog compliant and reliable with these tools right here. Otherwise, your dog will not listen to you. But I'll say it a different way. With the proper use of these tools, they will empower your voice so that you no longer need these tools.
And I have yet to see him working a dog in a video without any tools on. Again, he's saying that you have to have these tools in order to teach and in order to have a reliable dog. And that is not the truth. That is a lie. And he may tell himself this, and he may believe it. And that's sad and that's scary. Because for dogs, they have to develop just like our children have to develop. We wouldn't take a child who learns the alphabet and immediately put them into a spelling bee and shocking them because they spell the words wrong. We're not going to shock them until they get it right. No, because they're eventually going to quit. And that's abusive. Same concept here. He truly believes that this is what you have to do. He doesn't want to take the time to educate himself into truly learning how to interact and teach another organism. And that's the difference between fear-free trainers, positive reinforcement trainers, and balanced and aversive trainers. Fear-free trainers, we can train like your balanced and your aversive trainers. We can use those tools the same way they can. We choose not to. The thing is they can use those tools, but they can't do what we do. They can't teach fear-free. They can't teach behavior without using that fear and intimidation and that pain. And that's the difference between a professional and someone who is just out for their ego and for some money in their pocket. If you want to learn more, be sure you follow us on all the social media. Continue to listen to the podcast and check out our on-demand stuff and our website and all those good things. And let your family and friends know that have dogs. Let them know about us. Let them know that there are better ways to do things, especially if you have a friend who has their dog on a prong collar or a shock collar or using any type of aversive balance technique. Send them our way. We'll be glad to help them.